In this video, we are going to be discussing chapters 1 and 2, global citizenship. I'm going to be providing an overview, talk about some very critical concepts pertaining to the overall idea of global citizenship. So let's begin by taking a look at some key points here. Global citizenship is the idea that we belong to a shared community, right? A shared community of fellow human beings. Now, what does that mean? Shared community in this context means that we are in this world with many other people, right? We share the same resources with many other people, and we have to be, and because of this fact, we have to be very aware, we have to be very conscious, we have to be very helpful when and where there's need, and so forth, right? We share the community, and we are not talking about your immediate community, we are talking about the global community here, right? We share the community with fellow human beings, and this fact alone will compel us to be very, very aware of what's going on around us, what's going on in the world, and to be also be very compassionate in terms of how we can expand our resources to help people get to the next level. The second nugget point here says we are not only citizens of a nation, we are also citizens of the world, right? So all of us are citizens of a nation. It could be Canada, it could be India, it could be China, it could be United States, but we are also citizens of the world because it's a global village. It is a global village, right? So we're citizens of the world. So what happens in one country impacts us in Canada. Even though that country is so far away from us, it impacts us in Canada. That makes us citizens of the world because of globalization. Increasing globalization makes that possible now. Global citizenship, the third point here says, global citizenship requires action. This is a very important point, students. Students, please take note. It requires action, right? We can, not explanation, it says, the next point here, it says, not explanation. So we can talk all we want. If it's not backed up with action, we have done nothing. So action in terms of taking action to relieve or alleviate poverty around the world or even in your own community. Hunger, for example, homelessness, right? We can talk about homelessness, but if we don't take action as an individual, as a community, as a society, then we haven't done anything. We haven't had any impact on that particular problem. So global citizenship requires social action, requires action, and action is an integral part of being a global citizen. And that's why we have global citizens all over the world taking action. Mother Teresa, for example, in India, Calcutta, she took action. She's late now, but she took action to help young girls, to pull them in and give them a sense of belonging and sense of worth and self-esteem and give them a trade and so forth. That's action, right? So we can talk about young girls on the street, but if action is not taken, then nothing is done. All right, so next point here says, and this is speaking to definition, this fourth nugget point, it says the United Nations Academic Impact Initiative defines global citizenship as an umbrella term for social, right? So the action could be social. It could be something dealing with social. It could be something dealing with political as well, right? So we are demonstrating, we are protesting a policy that disadvantages a certain segment of our society. That's political action we are taking. We are writing to our members of parliament to take action against something that is, again, disadvantaging a segment of our society. That's political action. Environmental action as well. Economic action. All of these speak to global citizenship. All of these actions in the different areas speak to global citizenship. And that is the critical point about global citizenship. Depending on your interest, if you're social minded, if you're a social activist, you can take action under the social umbrella. If you're a political activist, you can take action under the political umbrella. If you're an environmental activist, you can do that as well. Today, we have many environmental activists that have taken action to bring awareness towards the pollution that is going on all around the world in our communities, unsafe water, drinking water, our oceans being polluted, and so forth. So different areas depending on your passion. All right, so let's move on to the next point here. Common terms that are associated with global citizenship. This is a very important point I'm making here that will be part of your final test in terms of understanding the key terms that are associated with global citizenship. So let's take a look, right? So let's take a look here. So it says here economic fairness is a key term, right? So economic fairness means here equal distribution of resources, right? So we want to ensure that all citizens have access to equal resources. And this is important because when citizens have access to equal resources, guess what? They become productive. They become motivated, right? They are part of society. They feel they belong to society. They are valued. They are appreciated, and so forth. It raises their level of productivity and interest in society. This is very important, and this is what a lot of governments around the world are not recognizing, that when you lift people from poverty, they are appreciative and they work harder to make sure that society moves forward. So economic fairness is critical to being global citizen. Having economic fairness makes global citizenship even more possible, because when people are satisfied, when people have resources, they're able to go to other communities to make things happen. This is very important. All right, so the next point here says equitable distribution of resources. That ties in with the first one here, which is economic fairness. Education is key when we talk about global citizenship, right? Education is key because education gives us social, right, mobility. Gives us social mobility. In most societies around the world, one of the ways to move up is through education. And that's why parents emphasize education. And that's why governments at all levels emphasize education, because it gives us social mobility, right? So when the more educated you are, the more opportunities open for you. Let me give you an example, right? So according to statistics, please take note of this point I'm making. For every year you spend, right? You spend in college or university, you are adding 10% to your annual income, right? To your annual income. And that's what makes education so critical. You're adding 10% to your annual income for every year you spend in college or university. And so the more time you spend in higher education, the more chances you have of making a good living, right? To be able to provide for yourself, for your family, to have capacity, and to be able to provide for others as well. That's what makes education so critical in this whole concept of global citizenship. The next point here is poverty alleviation. We have to alleviate poverty if we are going to have global citizenship, right? Because people cannot be helping others if they are poor. They cannot be traveling around the world if they are not able to meet their own needs, right? So this is common sense. So poverty has to be alleviated for people to be productive. So in alleviating poverty, we have to make sure, right, that we are lifting, right, people from poverty to be productive citizens, right? To be productive and contributing citizens, right? Productive and contributing, this is contributing citizens. To be productive and contributing citizens. What does that mean? It means here, this is contributing, let me spell it well. It means here, they are paying taxes, right? They're paying taxes to the government. When you have money, you pay taxes to the government. If you're poor, you're paying. If you're working, if you're poor, sometimes you're tax exempt, right? You're not contributing to society in that sense. And societies need taxes to function, especially in Canada. Canada is a high tax country, right? So we need taxes to function. And the more people get out of poverty, the more taxes they pay, right? They pay taxes those taxes go to help, right, build our country, right? Build our country, build our societies. And all of the programs that we have come as a function of taxes. So poverty alleviation is so critical when we talk about global citizenship, because we need people to get out of poverty, to be productive citizens, to be contributing citizens economically, financially as well. But more importantly, right? More importantly, to build capacity. This is important point here. Build capacity. That means they are self-sufficient. That's what capacity means. Means they are self-sufficient. Right? That's what capacity means. So when people have capacity, they're self-sufficient, then of course they're able to go out there and help others, and they're able to become global citizens. All right, so cultural identity is another key point here, right? So cultural identity here is important because it speaks to your, right, your self-esteem, and it speaks to your individualism as well. Please take note of this point. Individualism as well. Self-esteem speaks to your, cultural identity speaks to your self-esteem, right? If you have cultural identity, you know who you are. You know what you're about and so forth, right? You know your individualism. You know you're an individual with a culture, with an identity, etc. And this again enables us to become global citizens because we know who we are. We are sure of ourselves, right? We are sure of ourselves, and this assurance, let me spell it well. This assurance, right, enables us to be global citizens, right? Enables us to be global citizens. So you see how these concepts and these key terms are so critical in the overall concept of global citizenship. Now, that takes us to the next point here, which is the environment, which is so critical in the grand scheme of things. The environment is so important in everything we do. And it's more so important in the whole idea of global citizenship. Why is that? Because the environment is so critical, because if we don't have a clean environment, right? Please take note of this point. If we don't have clean environment, this is what we're looking at. We're looking at unproductive citizens, right? Unproductive citizens because they are sick, right? Sick people usually don't contribute effectively to the workplace because they are sick, right? They are not lazy, they're simply sick. They're not able to do that. So it leads to unproductive environment. It leads to high demand on the health care system of the country, of the society. High demand on the healthcare system of society because people having breathing problems because of high pollution, for example, the poor environment, for example, right? It translates to high demand and pressure on the healthcare system. Also means that we are spending more on health, right? We're spending more money on health when that money could be used for something else. Please take note. That money could be used for something else, but we're spending it on health instead. It could be used for education. It could be used for job creation. It could be used to build libraries and community centers and other things and scholarships for students. But we're investing it in health because our environment is not good. And then, of course, we look at the life expectancy as well, right? So life expectancy, becomes low as a result of poor environment. So you look at countries around the world. Japan has always had the highest life expectancy for a long time now. What are they doing different in Japan? Clean environment, very clean environment. The way they eat, the food they eat, and so forth. Their lifestyle is very amenable to longevity. That's why they are always at the top of the list. So health and environment go together, right? They go together, and we have to have those things in place for us to have global citizenship, because when people are healthy, again, they're more likely to go out and help. Now, that takes us to the next point here, which is human rights. Right, so human rights then also speaks to global citizenship because, right, we have to have our rights, right, our constitutional rights, right, our constitutional rights. This is constitutional rights to be able to function as citizens, right? So if your rights are being violated, well, then you can't be a global citizen, right? You can be traveling around, or you can be having the freedom to go around communities to make a difference. If your rights are being violated by the authorities, we have to respect human rights of individuals. And that respect then gives us the ability, gives us the freedom to move around to help others around the world. Health, we've already spoken to this. This ties in with the environment that I talked about earlier. But health, of course, is critical in the grand scheme of things. Our citizens have to be healthy, to be productive once again, to be able to go out there and assist others, to be able to work and pay taxes and improve the GDP and so forth. Health is so critical, and that's why we emphasize, and that's why in Canada here we have universal health care, right? What does that mean? Universal health care. It means that everyone has access to free health. As long as you're a citizen, right? As long as you're a citizen, free health, or in this case, in the case of Canada, you're a permanent resident, you have access to free health, because we believe that a healthy citizens leads to productivity, leads to highly motivated population, leads to higher GDP, allows us to compete around the world because we're healthy and we're able to be productive. Gender equality is key as well. This is a very important point here. Gender equality is key. Why is that? Because again, it ties in with the previous point of human rights, right? So we have to ensure that we are treating all members of our society equally, regardless of gender. We're treating them equally. And when we say treating them equally, we are talking about the workplace, right? The workplace, that's one place where women are not treated equally in terms of pay, in terms of the power structure and so forth. In Canada today, this is Canada today, women make 83 cents, right, for every dollar a man makes on the average, right? So this is a very important point here. So on the average, in Canada, a woman makes 83 cents for every dollar a man makes on the average. And we are talking about the same job and qualification. So women are qualified as much as men are qualified. But then, of course, we have this 17 cents spread. Why is that? We have to begin to consider those things, right? So if we don't achieve gender equality in the workplace and in society, right, we have a whole segment, more than half of our population, not satisfied, being disenfranchised, so to speak, and not given the opportunity to rise in the workplace because they're not promoted, their work is not acknowledged as much, and so forth. That cannot happen. And if we want global citizenship, and if we want a productive society, we have to begin to level the playing field. All right, so that takes us to the next point here, which is globalization. Let's take a look at this. So globalization, then, it's a key aspect of global citizenship. Please take note, right? Globalization is a key aspect of global citizenship because it's, right, it does three things. Actually, let me put it here. It does three things for global citizenship. Globalization, that is, for global citizenship, right? Three things. It does three things for global citizenship. Please take note of these three things. They're key. You see them on your final test. And these three things are: one, transportation, right? So globalization allows us to travel around the world. And if we are traveling around the world, we are able to have impact on people around the world, is that not? Right? So we travel from here to South America, for example, and we're able to have impact on people. And so the way we travel, transportation then, it has made it easy, right? So we have the fastest means of traveling today. A plane taking off from New York City, for example, to London can fly for about 3 hours. It's on record that the flight from New York City to London, UK, not London, Ontario, but London, UK flew for just 3 hours. So we can really have impact around the world in the least amount of time and without disrupting our personal lives and our professional lives as well. So transportation then, right? So we have the fastest means of transportation today, right? That enables us to make the fastest, right? The fastest, the quickest impact. This is impact around the world, right? So the quickest impact around the world. This is revolutionary. This is new, and this really supports global citizenship in many ways. All right. So the second point, here has to do with communication. So let's put that here. So communication then, right? And communication, just like transportation, allows us. This is communication allows us to communicate, right, around the world, so effortlessly, right? So today with modern technology, let me put that here first. Effortlessly, let's spell it well. So today with modern technology, students, we're able to communicate around the world so easily, right? So we have text messaging, we have WhatsApp, which is essentially free, right? We have emails today, and we have BBM if you're using BlackBerry. We have many other means, video conferencing, Zooming, and so forth. So we can communicate around the world very quickly and have impact as well. We can make policies and communicate those policies around the world to satellite offices very quickly, right? And so communication is part of globalization as well, because that's part of technology that allows us to impact people around the world, again, without spending a whole bunch of money or time, and yet we're having an impact. So communication around the world, we communicate around the world so effortlessly. With modern technology, we're able to impact people, right? So with modern technology, we are able to impact people around the world, right, by communicating very quickly. And finally, on this point of globalization is migration, right? Is migration. Please take note. Migration, what does that mean? It means the movement of people. That's what migration means. And that ties in with the first point of transportation, right? So the movement of people around the world made easy by globalization, right? So, let's spell it well. Made easy, this is easy, by globalization, right? So today, people can apply online to immigrate to Canada, to UK, to Australia, and so forth, right? And sometimes they don't even have to go in for interviews. Everything is done online, and they're here, right? And they're here. This is critical, because when people migrate around the world, it means they are sharing cultures, they are sharing perspectives, they are sharing experiences, and so forth, and they're sharing capacity and their resources, and that makes us global citizens as well, because we're able to interact with people and understand them, understand events, and coexist in a peaceful way with people from around the world. We're able to understand where they're coming from, their culture, to be able to interact productively and effectively. So when we talk about globalization, we are talking about global citizenship in many ways as well. So the question is, how does globalization enhance global citizenship? This is your answer right here. If I ask you on your test, let me put the question here. How does globalization, right? Does globalization enhance means add, further, global citizenship, right? Global citizenship. This is what we're talking about here. All right, so let's move on quickly. So social entrepreneurism is also global citizenship. Take a look at this word here. Social means society. Entrepreneurism means business, right? You are engaged in some kind of trading, business, and so forth. So when we put the two together, it means something different, right? It means that entrepreneurs, right? It means entrepreneurs making a difference in society, right? By providing, or by solving, I should say, by solving, right, social problems. And that's why we have social in front of the word entrepreneurism or entrepreneurship. They are solving social problems, right? And how do they do that? By providing employment, right? Taking people off the streets, putting people back to work, giving them skills and capacity, giving them ability and the knowledge to be productive and to be successful in society. That's global citizenship. You are helping somebody get to the next level. That's global citizenship, right? So social entrepreneurs do a lot for our society. They are not interested in profit. Please take note, right? So they provide employment, right? And they are not interested in profit. They're not interested in profit, right? Yes, profit is good, and they need profit to stay in business, but their main purpose of getting to this, please take note, is not to make profit, but to help society get to the next level. Okay? All right, so social justice then is the next term that is very critical in global citizenship, right? Social justice is to make sure, right, and your textbook talks about it quite in detail, is to make sure that we are enabling all citizens to be equal participants in society, right? In society. So equal participants in society, it means that they have the means, right? Please take note. It means they have the means, right? They have the means, ability, right? And capacity, not to mention opportunity, to, right, be all they want to be. That is social justice, right? So we are not depriving anyone in our society here, right? We are not depriving anyone in our society here of being what they want to be, right? Of getting to the top. We are giving everyone equal opportunity, right? Let me put that here as well. We are giving everyone equal, I'm going to cap this because that's the key word here, equal opportunity to excel in society, right? To excel in society. That's social justice, right? Social justice ensures that we are pulling everyone along. That's global citizenship. In many ways, that's global citizenship. We are pulling everyone along. We are making sure that no one is left behind. That's social justice. That's global citizenship. All right, so the next point here is sustainable economic development and corporate social responsibility. Now, these are self-explanatory. Sustainable economic development simply means that we are putting in place policies that will give us continuous development on the economic front, right? Making sure that, again, we are creating jobs and making the opportunity for job creation by companies and businesses and individuals and entrepreneurs possible. For example, we are providing electricity, we are providing security, we are providing infrastructure, good roads, and so forth to make sure that companies come in and begin to create jobs. That's sustainable economic development. And corporate social responsibility speaks to corporations, right? Corporations making sure they are involved in their communities by providing opportunities for members of that community to thrive, again, to get to the next level. All right, so let's move on to the next point here. Key definitions of global citizenship. I'm not going to spend time on this because this is in the textbook as well. But here, when we talk about definitions of global citizenship, we are talking about, there are many definitions out there, right? So, but these ones here capture the concept capture the idea of global citizenship. And the first one says the first was established by Centennial College Institute for Global Citizenship and Equity. And it says here to be a global citizen means, or to be citizen in the global sense, means recognizing that we must all be aware. Now, I put the key words in red. Please take note. The key words, the defining words in this definition are all in red. So we must all be aware of the use of the world's resources, right? The resources we use, water, for example, energy, for example, and so forth. A lot of people are not mindful of energy that we spend. They leave lights on, they leave water running, and so forth, because these resources are plentiful in Canada, but in many other countries, it's a luxury, right? So we have to be aware of that, of our use of the world resources, and find ways to live on Earth in a sustainable way, right? In a sustainable way that speaks to the environment. That speaks to the resources that we use, the resources that are very scarce in a lot of countries. Again, that we take for granted in this country, in Canada, that we use. When we see others treated without justice, we know that we are responsible for trying to ensure that people are treated justly, right? Again, when we see injustice around the world, we have to take action. Now, action doesn't mean you are flying right away to that spot and trying to, talk to the government and so forth. That's not, while you can do that if you can afford that, but most people would not do that. But action could be raising awareness yourself. Writing in a newspaper, for example, raising awareness, or organizing a peaceful protest, right? It has to be peaceful protest, right, within the Constitution, or writing to your MP. There are many ways we can make sure that we are ensuring justice around the world for people that have been disadvantaged and people that have been oppressed by governments around the world. All right, so it says here, let's move on. We must think critically, right, about what we see, hear, and say, and make sure that our actions bring about positive change. Our actions bring about positive change. That's global citizenship, right? So please take note of these key points that have been made in this definition. Now we're going to move forward and talk about more definitions of global citizenship. I'm going to come back to this, but let's talk about more definitions of global citizenship here. I think I have it here. Yes, not this one here. Did I miss it? Right here. All right, so let's talk about this here. So when we talk about global citizenship, then we are talking about these points here. So the question is, who is a global citizen, right? So who is a global citizen? Let's answer that question now. There are 5 definitions I'm going to give you. Please take note of these definitions. They're very important. He or she who contributes to the body of, he or she who knows how the world works, right? Knows how the world works, right? So here, how policies are made that impact you, right? You have to understand that. It's very critical. You don't have to understand the whole details, but you have to understand how policies are made, right, that impact you. How economic policies, this is economic policies, political policies as well, right, are made that impacts us. In this world, they are made at 2 levels. Please take note. The first level is the United Nations. The United Nations makes policies that impact us on the political level, right? So United Nations equals to politics on the political level. This is United. On the political level, they make policies, right? They make decisions that impact us, sometimes on the military level as well, because they determine that we have to go to war against a certain country, and that happens. The countries around the world contribute troops, and that happens. We've seen that in the last 20 years several times. So United Nations make decisions, and guess what? It impacts Canadian soldiers. The decision was made in New York, but Canadian soldiers are impacted because they also go to war, or sometimes peacekeeping as well, right? So the United Nations is critical, right? And please take note of this point. The United Nations, UN, United Nations, has what is called this is Security Council, right? That is made up of 15 countries, 15 countries, right? Please take note. You don't need to know what those countries are, but you need to know the next set of information, which is 5 of the 15 are permanent. I'm going to cap this permanent members. All right, so please take note. So 5 of the 15 members are permanent members, and you need to know those 5 members, right? So the United States, USA, UK, Russia, we have China there, and of course France, right? These are what we call the permanent members of the United Nations Security Council. Please take note. Very important. You see it again on your test. Okay? Now, these permanent members don't go anywhere. They've been there since the beginning of the United Nations. It was formed in 1945, May 1945. They have been there since then. And they make the key decisions, right? They veto decisions, they approve decisions, and the key thing is all 5 have to agree on a decision before it happens. And now this is very tough because you have 3 of these are democratic countries, USA, UK, and France, and Russia is somewhere in between dictatorship and democracy, and China being a communist country when it comes to politics, and being a capitalist country when it comes to economics, right? So it's very difficult because they have differences in perspectives and different ideologies and so forth. So very difficult for them to come together to make decisions. All right, so the next point is the economic aspect, which is the World Bank. Please take note. So the World Bank and IMF, right? These are financial institutions. IMF stands for, let me spell it out, International Monetary, right? Monetary Funds, right? That's what it stands for, Monetary Fund. That's IMF, right? So these are key financial institutions that make decisions on the economic front. Right? So they give loans to poor countries, right? And give conditions for those loans to be paid back. Right? So they have very serious role, and they control collectively the United Nations, the World Bank, and International Monetary Fund control what happens politically and economically that impacts us in Canada and many other countries. You have to understand these dynamics, right? Again, you don't have to know the details, but understanding this dynamic display of power is very important to being a global citizen, because it says that you are aware of how policies are made and how things trickle down to you in Canada. All right, so the second definition of global citizenship is he, she who contributes to the body of knowledge, right? Please take note. Contributing to the body of knowledge. You are building capacity in the world and in your communities, right? So teachers are global citizens. I'm not talking about teachers who are teaching in elementary school, high school, or college and so forth as a profession, but people that go into the community on their own and teach and build capacity around the world, build schools around the world, give scholarships to students so that they can get to the next level on a consistent basis. They are global citizens, right? They are global citizens. So this, again, is very critical. To be a global citizen, you have to be in a position that you're contributing to the body of knowledge. You don't have to teach at the university to do that. You can go into your communities and begin to educate youth and disadvantaged people on any subject, as long as you're taking them to the next level and contributing to their knowledge and awareness and making them better citizens. You are a global citizen. He or she, the third point here, definition is he or she that is conscious and contributes to the environment, right? So this is environment. Let's spell it out well, and contributes to the environment. Environment is key. Like I said before, environment is key. We have to make sure we are contributing to our environment in a positive way, right? And the problem with the environment, students, is this: too many people in the world, right? In the world with less resources. Okay, please take note. With less resources. That's the problem with the environment. That's part of the problem. There are many problems with the environment, with the problem of climate change and global warming. But this is also part of the problem: overpopulation of the world with less resources. While the world is really not overpopulated, if we have equal amount of resources, right? So we are having a lot of people in the world, right? So today, the world's population is 7 billion, right? Today, the world population today, we are 7 billion people, right? 7 billion people. But again, the resources, while resources are not increasing, resources are not increasing. They are decreasing, rather, they are decreasing. And that is the challenge, students. That is the challenge with the environment. So we have to be able to be in a position where we are increasing resources, we are maximizing resources to meet the increasing population that we have, right? According to research, by 2045, that's 25 years from now, we are looking at 9 billion people on Earth. 9 billion people on Earth. The question is, do we have enough resources? Do we have enough food supply for 9 billion people? Do we have enough land and housing and jobs and so forth? That's what we need to consider when we talk about the environment. All right, so let's move on. The fourth definition of a global citizen is equity, right? So advocacy, right? So it means that you are advocating for others, means you are giving equity, fairness to those that don't have a voice in society. Those that don't have a voice in society, you are representing them. That's what it means, right? So society, people that are powerless in society, oppressed in society, who are told to be quiet, you are advocating for them. And again, advocacy here could be for children, could be for adults, could be for elderly citizens, could be for a minority group in our society and so forth. Advocacy means you are making sure that their voice is heard. You're making sure that they are equal players in the equation, right? They are part of the equation of society. If you are doing that, you are a global citizen. Right? So, for example, you're advocating for the environment as well. It doesn't have to be people per se. It could be a concept, an idea. You're advocating for environment. You're a global citizen. For animals, you're a global citizen because animals are a very important part of our ecosystem. They add so much to life. They add so much to our existence. And if you are advocating for them, you are a global citizen as well. Now, finally, the definition is bettering humanity, right? So you're bettering humanity. You are volunteering your time to improve the standard of living for fellow citizens, right? Fellow humans, I should say. Fellow humans, guess what? You are a global citizen. Again, it doesn't take much to be a global citizen. You don't have to travel around the world to be a global citizen. That's what a lot of people think. Not so. By doing the simple things in your community, you are a global citizen. So consistently helping people, homeless people, for example, it doesn't have to be only homeless people. It could be hunger, it could be poverty, it could be human trafficking, it could be crime. But if you're helping homeless people in the shelters, giving them training, capacity, and education, and so forth. You're going to the prisons. You're helping people in the prisons get education and so forth on a consistent basis. Guess what? You are a global citizen. So when we talk about global citizenship, students, we talk about the definition of global citizenship. We are talking about these 5 key points here. He or she who knows how the world works, right? Please take note. United Nations at the political level, the World Bank at the economic level. He or she will contribute to the body of knowledge. Very key as well. Contributing to the body of knowledge, building schools, giving scholarships,